and southwestern China, where they would paint their teeth black. And its meaning varied by culture and period, including beauty, adulthood,
I ain't gonna lie, I
marriage,
don't know what it is,
cultural
bro, but I
identity,
think that
dental
shit
health,
tough.
and social status, with some people today keeping this tradition alive.
Yeah, man.
And when it comes to filing your teeth, you had cultures like the Vikings population, who liked to file their teeth horizontally as some kind of tribalism thing. There were even African tribes that participated in the act of filing their teeth as well. And when it comes to gold grills similar to today, one of the closest accounts comes from Marco Polo, who was a 13th century European merchant who traveled all across Asia. And when he returned to Europe, he talked about his journey to this writer who turned them into a book called The Travels of Marco Polo. Although historians still debate whether parts of this book is actually factual or not, many of his details align with the independent Chinese sources when it comes to Marco's references to the gold teeth people of Yunnan. So in the late 1200s, he described the people of Zardandan, whose name literally meant gold teeth, in what is now Western Yunnan, China. Marco reportedly seeing them wearing fitted gold cases over their upper and lower teeth, and other historical accounts suggest these covers were taken out before eating, almost like an early set of non-permanent gold grills. However, when it comes to all these ancient traditions, they just show that humans have been manipulating their teeth for thousands of years. But when it comes to modern times, it doesn't connect or even explain why grills are so popular today, or explain the reason grills became so popular in Black American culture. That story begins in the early 1900s, with one of the first people on record in America who used gold teeth as a way of showing off their success. And that person is Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson, for those unfamiliar, in 1908 became the first Black boxer to become the world heavyweight boxing champion. And this was a huge deal because boxing was one of America's most popular sports at the time, possibly only second to baseball. And the heavyweight champion was one of the most famous figures in sports. And during this time in the early 1900s, there was a lot of racial violence and segregation, which bled into the world of boxing, which didn't allow Black boxers to compete for the heavyweight championship of the world, which is where all the money and notoriety was in the world of boxing. So Black fighters had to create their own championship, called the World Colored Heavyweight title, which Jack Johnson was the champion of until December 26, 1908, when Jack Johnson beat Tommy Burns to become the first Black man to hold the heavyweight championship of the world. And with all his success, money, and fame, Jack Johnson was known for showing it off, which pissed a lot of the white people off because many of them felt his lifestyle was completely out of place for how a Black man was supposed to behave in Jim Crow America. He wasn't humble or apologetic about his success. He showed it off. He wore expensive clothes, drove nice cars, and openly dated white women, which during this era was considered one of America's greatest racial taboos. Because during this time, Black men were routinely threatened, attacked, and even lynched over accusations of crossing sexual boundaries with a white woman. Yet, Jack Johnson publicly refused to live by those rules. Every part of his life seemed designed to reject the idea that a Black man should know his place. And among all those displays of wealth and rebellion was his gold teeth. There are photographs of Johnson where you can clearly see the gold in his mouth. And because of who he was, the gold naturally became connected to everything else he represented: money, confidence, and rebellion to the status quo. And whether he intended to be this way or not, his refusal to behave like the typical successful Black man was supposed to behave during that time created a new image for Black wealth and success. Now, of course, I'm not saying Jack Johnson created the gold teeth trend, but he was one of the earliest nationally visible Black celebrities whose gold teeth became part of his public image. But even though Jack Johnson was one of the most famous to do it during this time, he was not the only one wearing gold teeth. Some early blues and jazz performers working within the Black vaudeville circuit also rocked gold teeth, with people like Ma Rainey and Jelly Roll Morton. Ma Rainey's gold teeth went well with her overall stage appearance, including her sequins dress and diamonds, feathers, and gold necklaces. And when it comes to Jelly Roll Morton, according to people who remember seeing him, Morton had a diamond set into one of his gold front teeth. And there was others who rocked the gold teeth and the diamond gold too. However, when I was learning about all these early entertainers who used gold teeth as a fashion statement or a status symbol, it made me wonder what inspired them to use gold teeth. Like, where did the idea of gold teeth being associated with success come from? And of course, going further than the obvious gold is valuable conclusion, but questioning what made the gold teeth the symbol of success. And honestly, I couldn't find any evidence or research to factually connect the dots on that question, but there was one theory I came across that honestly made a lot of sense to me. All right, I'm gonna keep this real quick. Shout out to Current for sponsoring this video. Man still does up to 200 bill on Devings, and more. After emancipation in the late 1800s, formerly enslaved black people finally had the freedom to seek professional dental care because prior, slaves weren't allowed to get their teeth fixed. And back then, if you had a damaged tooth, one of the most common dental practices to help was to use gold. Gold was soft enough to shape around a tooth, durable enough to last, and dentists used it for crowns and caps all the time. And back then, going to the dentist to get this procedure wasn't cheap. For many black families, especially in the South, it was something only people with a little extra money could afford. So seeing someone with a gold cap wasn't just seeing a repaired tooth, it could have also signaled you and your family got some money. And over time, it's possible those gold caps started becoming associated with prosperity and success. And once highly visible black figures like Jack Johnson and others had gold teeth, the idea of a gold tooth may have transformed into something that represented wealth, confidence, and style. And one of the reasons I tend to believe this theory is because it lines up with something I've already talked about in my video about black people's unique obsession with money as it pertains to our love for flexing or showing off physical money. And in that video, I connect this to poor insecurity, basically the anxiety that comes from living so close to financial struggle that when you finally get some money, you feel the need to have something tangible that proves you're no longer in that position. And when you come from a group of people who historically had to fight against racism, oppression, and limited opportunities to build wealth, those visible symbols of success can become even more meaningful because it's not enough to just have money. You want something you can see that reassures you, and something other people can see that tells them, I'm doing good, I made it. And historically, that could be nice clothes, a nice car, jewelry, or in this case, gold in your mouth. But that theory also connects with what Zora Neale Hurston observed about Black American culture around this time in the early 1900s. She described what she called Black people's will to adorn, the tendency Black people have to decorate ourselves, our language, and our surrounding as a way of expressing identity and meaning. So if getting dental work was already something that required disposable income, and the evidence of that dental work was literally a piece of gold that everyone could see whenever you smiled, I can understand how something that started out as practical dentistry could eventually take on a completely different meaning. Black culture has a long history of taking everyday objects and turning them into symbols of pride, identity, and personal style. Gold teeth may have simply become another chapter in that story, similar to why flexing physical money is a thing in our culture. However, continuing the story throughout the middle of the 20th century, gold teeth continued showing up among entertainers, musicians, and ordinary people inside Black communities. And over time, the gold teeth aesthetic merged with street culture, becoming visual signifiers of hustlers, gamblers, musicians, and entertainers who operated outside the traditional corporate economy. This is where we start to clearly see Black cultural figures using visible gold teeth to project wealth, individuality, and defiance, continuing the path set by Jack Johnson and others in the early 1900s. And by the late 1970s, early 1980s, gold teeth began taking on a new form that wasn't a permanent decision like it was in the past. Because up until then, acquiring gold teeth required permanent medical procedure. A dentist had to shave the natural tooth down and cement a cast gold shell crown over the tooth. This process was irreversible, costly, and carried risks of nerve damage or complications if improperly fitted, until someone introduced another option: how to make this style of gold teeth not have to be a permanent decision. And that person is Eddie Plain. In 1983, while learning how to make dental molds and work with metal at the Magna Dental Institute in New York, Eddie began experimenting with another idea. Setting up a makeshift dental laboratory in the basement of his family's Brooklyn home, experimenting on his parents and close friends, refining a technique to cast a thin, low-profile gold cap that fitted securely over natural teeth without cement. Plain soon expanded from single-tooth covers to multi-tooth link sets, introducing decorative features like heart cutouts, champagne flute engravings, custom initials, and diamond studs. Operating initially out of a pawn shop on Hillside Avenue in Queens, Plain gained widespread attention when Bronx rapper Just Ice became his first major celebrity client. Just Ice proudly displayed a set of Eddie crafted gold fronts on the promotional poster and cover artwork for his 1987 album, Cool and Deadly, which sparked immediate regional demand for Eddie Plain's grills. And recognizing the growing business, Plain established his flagship retail location, Famous Eddie's, inside the Coliseum Flea Market in Jamaica, Queens, a central hub for New York street fashion, Famous Eddie's quickly became an essential destination for the hip-hop community. Plain created custom removable grills for prominent rap figures of the era like Flavor Flav, Slick Rick, Big Daddy Kane, Jay-Z, and others. Although by 1992, as copycat craftsmen saturated New York and undercut prices, Eddie Plain relocated his operations to Atlanta, Georgia, opening Eddie's famous Gold Teeth. Plain's arrival coincided with the rise of Southern hip-hop. His Atlanta shop became a central gathering spot for hip-hop artists. Plain crafted increasingly creative grill designs for figures like Outkast, Goody Mob, Ludacris, and Lil Jon. In the South, where permanent gold teeth had been a part of local working class culture for decades, Plain's removable fronts were quickly embraced as a dynamic expression of Southern pride. In Miami, however, Eddie's brother Lando continued the family business, but encountered some customers who were not all that impressed by the idea of removable golds, because to them, real golds meant the gold stayed in your mouth permanently.
The guys back then wanted permanent, still now, but that became my main thing, so I started doing more perms, and now that I partnered up with the dentist, you know, she could do the filing for me, and it just makes it much easier.
Every region had their own identity and culture when it came to grills. And all that regional interest and all that history and culture of gold teeth and grills in the Black community prepared the way for hip-hop media to take the culture of grills to another level. The national rise and even global rise of grills happened during the same period when Southern hip-hop was becoming impossible for the rest of the country to ignore. Houston artists were breaking nationally. Atlanta was becoming one of the most powerful cities in rap. New Orleans had already built major record labels and stars. Florida had its own bass, club, and street rap scene, and music television gave all these regional cultures a direct line into millions of homes. And grills are almost designed for the camera. They're impossible to ignore. And then in 2005, Nelly released the song Grills, featuring Paul Wall, Ali, and Gipp. The entire song was basically a national advertisement explaining what grills were, how much they could cost, and why somebody would want them. And by early 2006, it became the #1 song in the country, putting gold teeth and grills into the mainstream. And two of the people who became extremely popular for selling and improving the craftsmanship of grills during this time, and even still today, was Johnny Dang and Paul Wall. With their partnership starting in the late 90s, Paul Wall used his connection within the rap industry to sell their grills, while Johnny Dang, who went by TV Johnny, brought the expertise in jewel setting. Together, they popularized the fully iced out diamond grill with sets entirely covered in diamonds, even creating one of the grills that have been stuck in my head since I was a kid, which was the grills Lil Wayne wore in the Lollipop video back in 2008, which reportedly was valued at upwards of $150,000 for that diamond grill set. And Johnny Dang's business is still successful today, off the back of his legacy working with some of the biggest rappers in the past, which led to this reputation that made new rappers and celebrities today want to be a part of that hip hop's legacy, with them wanting to have their own Johnny Dang grill. It's basically became a rite of passage at this point, in a sense of showing you made it as a rapper, or that you're as successful or on the same level as the rappers before who had the Johnny Dang grill.
Hey Foma, what's it mean to you right now to be sitting next to Johnny Dang?
Forget the jewelry, forget the flashy like, it's a real life legend right here. I watched him young, I watched him be with all other types of legends I look up to. Bro, it's just a whole moment for me, bro. It's mean more than any money. You couldn't pay me to feel as good as I feel right now, I promise.
And Johnny's influence and innovation when it comes to creating different types of grills helped open the door for a new era of creativity where grills evolved from simple gold caps into one of the most customizable forms of jewelry in the world. Today, grills come in every style imaginable, from classic gold fronts to diamond encrusted sets, invisible settings, open face design, fangs, opals, colored gemstones, and custom engravings, and more, whatever you could think of at this point. And with the influence of hip hop globally, it has gone on to inspire people all around the world to create their own local grill culture, from Guatemala to the United Kingdom, France, Japan, and beyond. People have embraced grills and made them their own. And to me, I've always thought grills were just the coolest thing ever. I've even had memories of putting foil on my teeth to imitate having grills when I was younger. And I even was able to get my first pair of grills when I was 17. Thanks to my dad. I had got an 8-pack bottom row set of grills that I used to wear all the time. However, I believe my initial fascination with grills most likely started with my dad because he has had permanent golds that he has had long before I was even born. And I always thought they looked cool. Man, even my great grandmother had a couple of gold teeth. Although I don't know if hers were for dental reasons or for aesthetic purposes, but I like to believe it was for aesthetic because It just looks too clean paired with her other jewelry. Either way, to me, grills have always been fascinating, and learning about the story and history behind them made them that much more interesting to me. But let me know your thoughts on this topic in the comments.
Nah, that
Also,
was
tell me about any
beautiful.
story you may have when it comes to grills, like if you had any, or
I always wanted grills, but I always told myself I'm gonna definitely get me a pair when I get like rich type shit.